the final UX2000,
or the Sony WH-CH720N.
choose your password.
Namaste, we're DHRME.
Dutch bros hitting the rap, making e-reviews.
Yo. So what are we talking about? We're talking about two headphones. Basically noise cancelling wireless Bluetooth headphones. And they're kind of similarly priced. So the final is priced at $120. Yes, the UX2000. And the Sony was initially priced around $150, but we looked it up on Amazon and it's around $90 to $120 right now. So they are priced in the same range. Do they look in the same range?
Yeah, kind of. Because yes, there's a bit of a difference. The UX2000 from Final come in just two colors, black and a cream version. The Sony comes in three colors, this blue one or black and white. But they're quite similar on your head, as in this one has more of a PXE 550 from Sennheiser look. So it has a very, businessy, professional, serious look. Whereas this one has a little bit more of a fun look.
Yeah.
But they're not gaudy in any way. They're not too, out there. Both have a little bit of branding on the side. This one has the little Final logo. Looks also nice. That one just has Sony on the side. Also fine. So fine with both. Both look good.
That was a useless section. We go on to the next one. We talked about looks, but what about the build? So for me, Kevin, both of these are basically plastic headphones. Both of these are basically using buttons for control. We'll come to the details of that in a second. These do feel more premium, don't they?
They do.
And what is it about it that feels premium to you?
The moment you pick it up, there's just much more heft to it.
The Final. We're talking about the Final.
The Final is more heavier in the hand, which is nice. And it doesn't feel like it's as cheap.
Yeah, this one feels light, flimsy. I'm convinced if I just close my hand tight enough, I'm going to snap these into two. Don't do it. But on the other hand, I have stretched these quite a bit and they've not broken. So yeah, that's good. So in terms of build, this feels more premium. It's more cushiony. It's more kind of faux leathery. The plastic feels a bit stronger and firmer, whatever you want to call it. But none of these come with a case. So that's one place where these companies have saved their money.
Because the case is super expensive.
Cases are
it's
pricey
crazy.
as hell.
Have you seen the market price on cases these
days? Guys don't
days?
know how expensive cases are. You're very lucky to get cases. So none of these comes with a case. But that's kind of where the similarities end for me, because these guys can do this. The Final UX2000 can fold, and these guys...
Nope.
No, they're not.
It's kind of a Sony thing now, huh?
Yeah. I think since the Bose 700, Sony has gone all out into non-folding. But this is really nice that you can still fold, and you don't get a case, but you can just put them in a backpack or whatever. And they don't take up as much space. So that's nice. And we talked about cheap and expensive. Both of these use these kind of clicky ratchets. The Sony isn't quite as loud. And these ones, they're loud. And it can almost be disconcerting in a quiet space. But they're also tight. They're tight as...
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
What are we talking about? Oh yeah, the ratchets, So.
And these things just like slip in and on like they're well lubricated or something. These are just really tight.
Let's stick to the headphones.
The headphones, yes.
The headphones, yeah.
So the Final UX2000 are tight and it feels a bit...
Firm,
but does it feel cheap or expensive? I'm confused about that.
Right, yeah. I think the firmness definitely feels like, okay, it's not gonna like break anytime soon. But just because how unrefined it sounds, just loud, it feels cheap.
And it's easy to go one way. So when you open it up, it's really easy.
Yeah, but putting it back.
And when you put it back in,
it's like you jump a couple of clicks very quickly.
And it's also a bit sharp, so you can end up catching your finger on it, like these edges.
Yeah.
So these are also sharp, but doesn't feel as dangerous as the Final.
Okay, I think that's enough for this.
Enough about the build quality. Going into comfort now, both again, we said these are way plushier. Here's some B-roll of Kevin squeezing the ear cups on both headphones.
Special request for that.
As you can see, he was more satisfied squeezing the Final than the Sony, and that is because the padding and the cushion is much better on these. For comfort, I thought these were more comfortable for me on the ear because they have those kind of Bose-like deeper cups. These kind of touch your ears. Not uncomfortable by any stretch of imagination, mind you, the Sony, but the Final are more comfortable on the ear, on the headband as well, because these are also more plush, and this is kind of very, very
Yeah.
Just a very basic padding.
But what that one has going for it is that it's super light. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
you
one
can-
thing it has going for it is super light, and the second thing is the clamping force.
Yeah.
I would call this like a light to a very light clamping force, and this would be a medium.
Yeah.
So again, this is not a heavy clamping force that's uncomfortable, but if I had to choose between the two, and depending on your head shape, these might be more comfortable, or these, but for different things. So the buttons on each of these. Oh my God, the button situation. So we always like buttons over touch, so that's good. But the Sony, it's almost impossible to know which button you're hitting, except for the noise cancelling button, which is a separate button, and a power button on the left ear cup. They've kind of joined the play, pause, and volume rocker in such a poor way that you really don't know which button you're hitting. You cannot feel any kind of, raised part on the buttons itself, whereas these have separate buttons for volume, for play, pause, for ANC. So in terms of button control, and it's an important thing because you will be using it a lot, the Final wins out.
Yeah. In terms of battery life, the Final is advertised at 45 hours and the Sony is advertised at 50 hours. So 5 hours difference, but we'll put up on screen what our battery test has shown.
Before we go to the next section, we do want to say that both of these can get very, very big, and you should be okay with both of these if you have large heads. So again, it doesn't help you choose between these headphones, but at least these will cover your heads. That's what we have on this point in terms of that point. What about the multi-point?
Moving on to that point, both of them do have multi-point and they can connect to 2 points of connections, which is... Yes, both of them do support multi-point and they can connect to 2 devices at the same time. We've tested this across different devices, iPhone, Android, Mac. Works well. There is one thing though, if you do plug them in wired, you can't use the buttons. But the Sony though, if you power them on and they're wired, you can change the noise cancelling mode, whereas on the Final you can't do that.
Yeah.
2 final biggest differences in this section, and both the Final loses out on, because it does not have Google Fast Pair and it does not have an app, which the Sony does.
Yeah, and that app is huge.
Yeah.
It makes a massive difference. We'll come to the sound in a bit, but I really wish that the Final had an app. Fast forward to
ANC.
ANC, yeah.
And fast forward to me falling over. All right, noise cancelling. Both of them have it, and both of them we would slot into tier B. The low-end ANC is good on both of these. So the ANC on the Final, even though it is in tier B, we would say is better than the Sony WH-CA720N, but worse than, for example, the SoundCore Space Q45. Yeah. But again, all 3 tier B.
And the transparency is better on the Sony because it has transparency.
And this one does not.
Yeah, the Final UX2000. It's a very weird choice. I've not seen that before. They have ANC.
Yeah.
They have ANC off, but no transparency mode at all. Where the Sony really wins out is the transparency is actually objectively good. It's not that it just exists on paper. They have a good transparency mode, and of course you have the slider in the app and all those fancy things that the app gets you, but this does not have transparency.
I was actually wearing them. I was cycling through the ANC modes. I was like, ANC, ANC off, ANC, ANC. I'm like, where's transparency mode?
There's no transparency.
Not there.
No. And I was biking with the Final UX2000 on, and I must say, if you're in very windy situations, it ain't great. With ANC off, you can hear the wind as well, but it's not like as jarring or grating. When you turn the ANC on, it gets sometimes even worse because you get those higher pitched kind of loud noises. So these are not great for using outside in the wind when you're walking around and stuff like that. But when you're walking around, you may also want to make phone calls.
And about the phone calls, let's check them out with our popsicles, our icicles, and our popsicle, icicle. Testing. All right, we're back. So the Fuckman controls on these headphones is basic on this because you can only do volume control and answer and hang up, of course. But the Sony?
Yeah, you can do volume controls, answer, hang up, and you can change ANC mode while you're on a call, which I don't know why you can't do it on this, but none of these are awesome for Fuckman controls. There's no muting and stuff like that while on a phone call, but
definitely pick the Sony for that. But a Fuckman needs more than just phone calls when you buy headphones, right, Ron?
Headphones are all about the phones, about the sound. Phone is sound. It's a Greek or Latin word or something. Look it up. It's related. Anyway, the sound quality on these two. The final UX 2000. Okay, to begin with, both of these are very basic codecs, SBC, AAC, so don't expect high resolution codecs and things like that. And it really shows in their sound for both of them. I feel like they lose out a bit on the resolution, especially in the treble region. Now the final, I really enjoyed. It's tuned differently to the Sony, slightly at least. The final has a very nice bass punch. When you hit a kick drum, you really hear the definition of the kick drum. Whereas on the Sony, it's kind of like gets lost in that sub-bass, bass kind of waffly situation. But the Sony is better tuned, which means like you'll hear voices, instruments much more clearly on the Sony than on this. In this, you'll hear the bass and the higher end, so it's more of a V-shape. This one is also V-shape, but less so than the final. Now, which one do I pick for sound? In most cases, I would go with the final. But if I had to recommend it to somebody, I would still say Sony.
And why is that?
That is because the Sony has an app, as we said earlier. The final, I have some problems with the final's treble. I also have problems with the Sony's treble, but the final is quite a bit brighter than the Sony. And I would really like to tame it down. And considering I have like not perfect hearing, I'm sure it's pretty bright for most people. I would not listen to the final for longer periods of time in their stock sound signature. And on the Sony, you can turn it down, 5-band EQ, clear bass slider, the works. A bigger advantage that the Sony has, which even an app will not fix, is that the Sony is just clearly louder. So it's like a 2 or 3 notch difference. It's really, really, really quiet, I would say, the final. Now, again, for my music, it made no difference, but if you are hard of hearing or if you have recordings of lower volume, I think you will be happier with the Sony than with the final. So that's kind of where I am on the sound quality. Now the sad thing about final is I think they have really good hardware, really good drivers. I think it's the codecs and the Bluetooth that's killing the sound, because once you plug these in, these sound much better. That treble I was talking about, that irritating sibilance, it gets really tamed when you plug it in. But these are wireless headphones, so I would not recommend people buy these for wired sound unless they're that good. But yeah, for wireless, I would still choose a Sony. Okay, Kevin. So let's say these are about $90, $100, or they're the same price, right? This is 120, this is 120. Which one would you choose?
So between the two, I would pick the Sony just because they have a transparency mode, which this doesn't. They're very comfortable and lightweight. And, you know, I can change noise cancelling modes on calls, for example, which is important to me. Those are a couple of the things that would go into me wanting to buy the Sony over this.
Yeah.
For you?
Just to play devil's advocate, I think these are really well built, and maybe that will play out over time. You know, if you want to keep headphones for a longer period of time, the final might be a better bet. But still, I cannot see myself, at least at the price it's going at right now, $90. There's no way I can say buy the final over the Sony, because you get an app, you get transparency, you get, you know, many other things that the final does not give you.
Yeah.
But if you want just like a set of headphones with good battery life, decent build, low price, you don't care about transparency, I would see that the final also offers certain value. Yes, they also fold. So there is a certain value here. It's not a clear-cut thing, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, we would recommend the Sony WH-CH720N. So the Sony won, but who else are real winners?
You guys, obviously, especially the patrons and members of this channel. Thank you very much, guys, because yes, full transparency, Final sent us these headphones. Sony, we bought with our own money, but our reviews are unbiased and uninfluenced by anyone. So no one got any say into this video.
You will never accept money from any of the brands whose products we review. So you guys are the real sponsors of DHRME.
And a special thanks to Paula, Hunter, and Gamma Panda for being our Fuck Month tier patrons and members. Thank you very, very much. Oh, and what's this? I just heard that only like 10% of you are subscribed to the channel. What's
Why?
What's that about?
Why? I thought he was subscribed.
I thought he was subscribed too.
She's not subscribed.
And they're also subscribed.
Oh my goodness.
They're not? Why are you not?
Okay, that one is subscribed.
Okay.
But you should be subscribed as well. There's a button, red button.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Get in on that button action. Just like these headphones have buttons.
You've been making a final decision.
And we've been DHRME.
Do it.
Let's check them out with our popsicles, our icicles, and our...
Testicle.
The what?
Just said
The what?
The testing.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.